Welcome to the FIU Honors Podcast, Panthers Unleashed. I am your host, Emily Garcia, and we will dive into the stories, passions, and adventures of the FIU Honors community. Let's get into today's episode. Hi everyone, welcome to Panthers Unleashed. This is our very first episode, and I'm very excited to announce that we have a special guest with us today, Pete Markowitz. He is the Assistant Dean of the Honors College, and he will be talking about his experiences in all of his career paths throughout life and up to current day of being the Assistant Dean of Honors College. So let's give Pete a welcome round of applause.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm really happy to be here. I really like this podcast, and I think it's going to be a lot of fun.
Yes, me too. I'm really excited to finally get it up and going. So we're just going to jump right into the episode and talk about you, which is
okay, my
your
favorite subject. Yes,
ma'am.
Yeah.
So not a lot of us know that you had a career in physics, or at least I didn't know. And I just want to know a little bit more about that because I know that our students have a heavy focus in the sciences and medicine and going to medical school and maybe pursuing a career in chemistry, physics, all those. So for you, what kind of sparked your interest in physics in undergrad?
So for me, it goes all the way back to high school. I had a really good high school physics teacher, and I wanted to study physics when I went to undergrad, and I did. I also ran track and cross country, but my major was physics. And then I later on went on to graduate school in nuclear and particle physics. I do experiments, so that means I get to play with big, expensive toys.
Oh wow!
Like accelerators, and big chunks of iron that they create magnetic fields that bend particles, and that we then try to measure those particles and figure out how they were put together in the first place before we broke them all apart with a big collision.
That's a lot of big words.
It's a lot of fun.
It sounds like, honestly, hearing your explanation of that, I'm thinking of the Flash, the particle accelerator in the Flash and all of those things.
Mm-hmm.
So that's pretty cool. What was the coolest experience you had in your research? Did you go anywhere abroad? Did you stay in the United States?
So I've done experiments in Geneva, Switzerland at the CERN accelerator. CERN is an acronym, which CERN. It's a French acronym which stands for Center for European Nuclear Research. And I did experiments in Japan at the KEK accelerator, and in Germany at the Bonn University accelerator, in Holland at the it was called NIKHEF, NIKHEF, which was sort of the nuclear physics high energy accelerator they had there.
Wow.
So it was really fun to go around the world and do these things. That's how I did most of my travel, was for work, but it was kind of for play too, because it's really something I enjoyed. So it was great.
How did those opportunities come about? Because, I'm assuming that, did you fund them or did somebody fund it for you?
No, your tax dollars funded them. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. I appreciate it. No. My research has been funded almost entirely by the United States government. Some of my trips to Japan, the Japanese government paid for, but less than 1% of my research has been funded by Japanese government. It's essentially 100% Department of Energy or the National Science Foundation, which have funded it.
That's crazy.
And that means that, we have certain things we have to do. That means we have to be careful how we spend money, because it's not my money. It's the taxpayers' money. So we have to be really careful that we're spending it wisely, and that we're not, staying in fancy hotels or anything. We're staying in very basic hotels because we're not actually there for the hotel. We're there for the
work, right?
Yeah, for the laboratory, for the accelerator, for the work. Yeah. But I met some great people from all across the planet by doing that.
Was there a big, because I'm assuming you've also done experiments here in the United States too.
Yes.
Was there a big difference between doing experiments abroad versus here? Because maybe the system is different.
A little bit. Like in Japan, when you go there, you'll take off your shoes and put on paper slippers to go into the accelerator. Yeah, so you wouldn't wear your
culture,
outside
right?
shoes. Yeah, you wouldn't wear your outside shoes, which might have mud or something on them in there. And that actually does keep the environment a little bit cleaner. But a lot of these places, they're all very similar. So if you just take a photo of, we call it the counting house, the place where we start and stop measuring the data.
Mm-hmm.
Counting house, because you're kind of counting the physics events. And so they all look really, really similar. A bunch of computer monitors, a bunch of keyboards which go with them, a bunch of lights which tell you if something's gone really bad. If red lights start to flash, that's a bad sign.
Usually.
Yeah. Especially at 2 a.m. or something like that. That's a bad sign, yeah. Audible alarms if there's something which goes wrong. So you don't normally want to hear sirens and stuff going off. That's another one of those bad signs.
Yeah, and at least for me, I'm a political science major, so I chose that major specifically to avoid the math and the sciences.
Yeah.
So hearing all of these like experiences that you get, I wouldn't necessarily correlate them with physics. So it's really cool to hear that you've been to plenty of countries around the world
Yeah.
doing something that you love, right?
Yeah. And in those countries, the really fun thing is that the people we're with are all trying to do the same thing we are, trying to understand
Mm-hmm.
the universe a little bit better. And so the language which we use to talk about the universe is mathematics,
Yeah.
but we're trying to understand the world around us a little bit better and trying to figure out how we can look at the universe differently. So, um, the biggest change, I think, in how we look at the universe that's come from work I took part in was the Higgs boson, which was discovered at CERN. And we discovered that, we announced it in 2012. And that was an experiment which had 4,000 scientists and engineers from all around the world.
Whoa.
187 different countries took part in that.
That's nice. That's not honestly, I like I said, in the world of physics, I just associate it with math and science. So hear your explanation of it. It really is a big community worldwide.
It
And I would
is.
not
Yeah.
associate it like that. But it also gives a peace of mind. It's nice to know that people from all over can come together and focus on something that's bigger than ourselves
Right. So it's the largest
and
peacetime
contribute to our
collaboration
society,
period.
right?
Right. So we've had wars which involve more than 4,000 soldiers, of course, but this was the largest peacetime effort ever, and
Whoa.
it was successful. We actually found something that we were looking really hard for,
Oh,
and that
congratulations.
helped us to understand how the universe operates better. And it helps us to explain why electrons have the mass that they do,
I can
and
definitely see the
something like
passion in
that.
your face about
Yeah,
it.
it's cool. And now I'm still doing a bunch of really fun experiments about other exotic types of matter. So here in the United States, we have an accelerator called the Jefferson National Laboratory,
Hmm.
and that's up in Newport News, Virginia. And I've been working in there since I was in graduate school, actually, off and on. Yeah. And the experiments we're doing there, we have a whole set of experiments coming up where we're taking a proton inside of something like maybe calcium or carbon or iron. And we take the proton and we remove one of the quarks, which makes it up, and we replace it with a different type of quark, a strange quark, which doesn't last very long, but we measure the response of the system to having this weird new, it's literally called a strange particle inside of it. And so this strange particle gives it a different set of energies, it gives it a different set of properties, and so we have to be really quick, but we can measure those properties before it falls apart and decays.
That's incredible. How old were you when you did your first experiment?
Oh, that's a great question. I was in graduate school, so I was probably, say, 27 or 28.
And when you were working on them, was it would like mainly with people in your age group at the time, or was it older, a mix of both, or?
So the people who actually carry out the experiments are almost always students.
Oh, okay.
So we work with people my age or people who are more senior, who help to do sort of the general direction setting. But honestly, we rely on a small army of people to carry out these experiments. From like the ones at Jefferson Lab involved universities all across the country. I actually had a Zoom call this morning with scientists in Japan and in Italy, and a couple of us universities here in the United States. And
Wow.
so we're all setting up for this next round of experiments at Jefferson Lab that are going to try to measure the differences between the way neutrons interact with these different strange particles. And it has to do with the way which neutron stars might behave. And we're trying
Ooh,
to understand
I know
how
that
this
term.
would, yeah, we're trying to understand how that would interact.
I've watched a lot of The Big Bang Theory, so like certain terms that I hear you
Yeah,
saying, I'm like, oh, okay, I recognize it from the show.
yeah. So am I more like Sheldon, or what do you think?
I definitely don't think you have the personality of Sheldon,
Good.
but the brains maybe. I could definitely see that. But no, that kind of leads into my next question as to how
Okay.
you've kept physics in your daily life. So besides working
Yeah.
with the scientists from Japan, Italy, and the experiment place in Virginia, is there any
Jefferson
other
Lab.
aspects that you keep physics in your life? Maybe in your teaching?
Yeah. So when I go into the classroom,
Yeah.
I get to bring my physics in there. I work with a team which is got someone from the theater and performing arts department,
Hmm.
a historian, and then we've got a scientist. And so we get to take very different approaches to problem solving. And when we think about something like Plato and his view of the world,
Hmm.
what parts of it resonate with us, right? And so we get to argue that. Or when we look at London in 1854, they had a cholera epidemic. And so we get to see echoes of the COVID pandemic that we had a couple of years ago. We get to see echoes of that going back to 1854 in London. And how did they make their decisions and why?
Yeah.
And we get to think about, when COVID came out, none of us knew what to do. We all hid in our bedrooms for a year and a half, right?
We did.
Yeah. Well, so how did we figure out what was going on with the disease? And how did we figure out how to treat it? And they went through a really similar set of exercises in London in 1854. And my students here in the Honors College, they just finished this exercise. What would they do? Knowing that they're only allowed to use knowledge that was available in 1854.
Oh, wow. That's a cool aspect of this.
With their personalities, their minds, their experience growing up with the scientific method so ingrained in every aspect of your lives, how would they make their decisions now? And how would they stop all these needless deaths from cholera?
That's a very big question that I don't think I would be able to answer if I was taking your course.
No, it's really fun. The students have a great time with it. Yeah.
I can imagine that you see yourself in a lot of their faces. Think going back to being an undergraduate student who was majoring in physics. I'm not sure how many of your students major in physics, but somewhere in that field, that like, how is it? Do you provide a mentorship to those students, or like, how's the relationship built within the honors college based off of your experience that you've had going into undergrad and pursuing that career?
Right. So, honors college students are usually not physics majors, I gotta say.
Really?
So, yeah. Physics majors are a small fraction of the university. I happen to think that they're some of the best students we have at the university, but the honors college students, by definition, are the best students we have at the university. By definition.
We are.
No, seriously. They're intellectually inclined. They're eager to learn more. They have strong opinions. They like to be able to prove their opinions, to say, this is why I'm right and you're wrong.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, and so I really like to work with them when we have classes.
That's cool. Because I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but I know that the people who are more inclined in the science majors, they do have to take physics as a course, as a requirement, correct?
Yeah, so elementary physics courses are taken by a lot of different majors, by biology majors, by chemistry majors, engineering students. So all of the so-called STEM students will take physics.
And that's where you shine. But we're going to move a little bit away from your career in physics. We've gotten very deep into that topic, and we're going to transition to more I would get a big jump from physics to this role you held in the past as the faculty athletic representative.
So it's another piece of my job here at FIU.
Yes.
One of the things I really like about working at FIU is that I get to do a couple of different things. I don't stay
very
in just my
well-rounded
office.
man.
Yeah, there you go. So the faculty athletic representative to the NCAA is a position that's at every university that works with the NCAA. And in my case, I took it over from one of the founding faculty at the university, Steve Fain, who, he was here when they opened the doors.
Oh, wow.
And before me, he was the FAR. And so I took over from him, which are some big shoes to fill. Steve Fain, he was also an honors college professor, and he was a great professor. He's a fantastic person. He's sadly, he's retired, but he's still around. And Steve taught me a lot. I count him as one of my mentors.
Oh.
And from him, I took over as the FAR. And it's mostly a bureaucratic thing. Like, we certify that the students are progressing towards their degree for the NCAA. Or we sometimes step in when students are trying to take exams, but they have to take a makeup because they're out of town for a swimming and diving competition or a tennis tournament or something. Yeah, exactly. Usually it's not an issue, but occasionally, if the student's not able to coordinate with the professor properly, then maybe I can help them coordinate it.
Yeah. Within your role, how would you compare like the student athlete lifestyle to just a typical undergraduate student who's not necessarily involved in athletics? Because you yourself were an athlete in undergrad.
I was.
Correct?
I ran cross country and track. FIU student athletes are some of the best students we have in terms of time management.
I would imagine, yeah, because they juggle a lot.
Yeah, they do. I mean, they're up super early, and they're still working super late. They also have higher GPAs, maybe because the NCAA is like on top of them, making sure they're making progress towards their degree. But they graduate faster, and they have those higher GPAs. They're kind of like honors college students in that sense, right? The honors college students graduate with a higher GPA typically. Honors college students are more likely to go on to graduate school or professional school, medical school or something,
Right.
Student athletes, they have a host of opportunities that they're pursuing. right? So some of them want to go on and compete professionally in athletics.
I would imagine,
Yeah. Some of them want to go on to, some of them are funding their undergraduate degree by competing in athletics, and they've got an athletic scholarship to do it. And so it's an opportunity for them to get that education, which opens doors. You know, if you talk to an economist, they'll say you make millions more dollars if you happen to have an undergraduate degree than if you don't have an undergraduate degree. And so it's really life altering to get that bachelor's degree. It really opens opportunities for you that you otherwise would not, you just couldn't do.
Right. Especially in the student athlete realm, because I know that now we're kind of deterring away from the stigma that you go to college, you get more money than somebody who doesn't have a degree. But I think people are losing sight of the value of having an undergraduate degree.
I agree with you. Yeah.
Because yes, I do think that there are those opportunities that arise for people who don't necessarily have to have college degrees to be successful.
Right.
But it definitely gives you an edge.
Yeah.
And as a student athlete, I would imagine it's the same case.
Yeah. And our student athletes tend to be sort of self-motivated, self-driven, because they are putting in those long hours. And if they weren't so self-motivated and self-driven, they wouldn't be able to achieve what they achieve. And
right.
They push their bodies. So our honors college students obviously push their minds. They push themselves really hard to understand new things, to master new bodies of knowledge. The student athletes do all that, plus they're pushing their bodies to develop new skills.
Yeah, and we also have student athletes in honors. So
we have a bunch of students. Yeah, we have a bunch of athletes here in the honors college. Phenomenal students.
That's literally insane. I am not an athletic person. You know, all the topics we're talking about today, I'm just personally not. But it's okay because we're learning a lot about them together. But so did the position of being the faculty athletic representative kind of transition you or guide you to the role of assistant dean? Because now we're going to move over to the more current role that you're in.
So I did compete in track and cross country when I was an undergraduate, and then I didn't do anything with athletics for decades. And I came here and I was a faculty member in the physics department. I still am a professor of physics. And I started teaching in the honors college in 2001.
Okay.
And so that was my beginning of the journey
within honors
college.
Specifically.
Yeah. And so I've been teaching continuously in the honors college since 2001. I actually am really happy that Dean Espinosa allowed me to get in my contract that I am allowed to teach a course in the honors college every semester, period. That, you know, I get to teach.
Even as assistant dean?
As
oh, that's really cool.
It is.
And I also feel like it gives you, sorry, I don't mean to cut you off, but that it gives you a more humbling experience because you get to kind of switch your brain from go, administrative work to an engaging pool. Is it an honors college class?
Yeah.
Yeah. So an engaging pool of like interdisciplinary topics, and you kind of just shut your brain off and relax for a second and go back to what it was like to be an undergraduate student as you're teaching them. And then you flip it again and go back to your administrative work. I'm
not sure it flips. I'm not that quick mentally. But I will say that, you know, that it's really grounding. Like I think all administrators at the university ought to be as connected to the students as possible. Mm-hmm. And for me, that means teaching. I did have to stop teaching physics. There just wasn't enough time in the day.
Right.
But I'm still doing physics research. And so I am connected to the physics department. I'm teaching honors college students. And so I'm connected to our students, right? Our community of students. And that's really good for me.
I mean, even with us.
Yeah.
Like even that, I was a transfer student, so I didn't get to take any of the intro seminars and honors, but still the opportunity was available to get a job working with David, the social media manager, and in turn meeting you, meeting Dean Espinosa, meeting Natalie, meeting Andrea, meeting all these faculty that we have that also teach classes. Yeah. And I had no idea. Yeah. So I still got the benefit of knowing all of you and learning from all of you while being a transfer student, which I think definitely feeds into the whole thing of why the honors college is the way it is. Because even though I didn't have that experience personally in your classroom, I still know that I can come to you and be like, this is what happened to me today.
Well, so the honors college faculty are all really passionate about teaching, right?
They are.
They're teaching you something they think that you will benefit from knowing. And for our upper division classes, it's still a multidisciplinary course, even if it's only taught by one professor, and it's something they created. So a lot of faculty across the planet really are worried about their intellectual labor not belonging to them, belonging to the university instead, and they might outsource the course you create to be taught by someone who's remote. Mm-hmm. But in the honors college, we can't do that because the course you create, like it is 100% owned by you. You have decided everything from the syllabus to the readings to the assignments. You've created something from scratch,
Wow.
and that's really nice because it means that the faculty are invested.
Yeah.
Like this is
And they're
them.
passionate about it. And you can always
They
tell
are.
when a professor is passionate about what they're teaching and when they genuinely have a liking for it. They're not just doing it for
Mhm.
a non-genuine reason.
Yeah, like after 20 years of teaching introductory physics,
Mm-hmm.
I admit as much as I like physics, that course gets a little bit
Overwhelming.
no, just stale, right? I've taught
Yeah.
it before. I recognize where the students are going to have trouble. I recognize a lot of the issues they're going to struggle with. But the honors college students, they're all unique, aren't they? Yeah, they're like in a good way, they're special.
Yeah, I agree. I've met a lot of people that I normally wouldn't have connected with if I just did regular FIU.
Mm-hmm.
That honestly, college was a whole different experiment for me.
Mm-hmm.
Ha, see, experiment. I did my own experiment. I'm not a physicist, but I did an experiment. But no, it's definitely been a good experience for me and a self what am I trying to say? A self-reflecting experience too. With the help of the faculty and the staff that I've met along the way, and they've guided me and helped me in my own personal journey, but I know that also applies to you in terms of the students that you teach as a professor in your interdisciplinary course.
Yeah.
And it's like I would imagine for you it's a very rewarding experience.
It is very rewarding. And actually, that's why I wanted it in my contract that I get to teach. Because this is not much of a secret, but the university has a lot of administration, a lot of bureaucracy.
Yeah.
Like you can easily get lost just trying to keep up with your email and your paperwork. So I get to set it down. And Tuesdays and Thursdays at 11 o'clock, I get to walk over to a classroom and I get to talk to real live people. And students at a university are actually fun because students are young, they're active, they're going places, they're building their futures, they're learning new things. And honors students, on top of that, are all so gifted, right?
Thank you.
They are. No, they are. Come on. I mean, no false modesty. We have the best students.
I agree. And I'm not even a professor.
There you go.
I should be, though.
A couple more years.
You know, we'll see if we get into that point of my professional career. But so in terms of like your role as an assistant dean, what's the biggest difference between being an assistant dean and being dean?
Okay. So I'm the associate dean for faculty and classes, curriculum. So what that means is that I worry about which classes we're going to offer. Can I cajole more faculty to teach for us? Can we somehow tell students what these classes are about? How do we communicate that? Because our classes are all unique and multidisciplinary. So we have to work with people like our social media manager to make sure that we can tell students about these opportunities.
Right.
Because they are really fun. We had students today who are out canoeing, for example, and learning all about Biscayne Bay. That's cool. That's cool. They're doing that as part of their college experience.
Right. And that's not very ordinary.
No, it's not. No, that's not most of our students. That's
exactly.
A couple of them. Yeah. And they chose to do that. That was part of what they wanted to do as their college experience. We have other students who are working in physics labs or who are learning about future law professions, who are trying to figure out the difference between a smart employer who's not wasting money paying their employees more than they need to, and someone that's literally stealing their wages, wage theft. So we have students that really wrestle with issues that affect everyday life, and some that seem abstract, that seem more removed from everyday life. But ultimately, it's about the universe we're living in, so it's not.
It all ties back to physics.
It all comes, right? Right? I agree with you. See?
And Dean Markowitz's life, it all ties back to physics.
There you go.
So we're going to start wrapping things up here in a minute, but I just want to get a quick segment of what do you think the future of Pete Markowitz is going to look like in terms of honors college, classes, connecting with students, what's going to stay the same, what's going to change?
So I've loved my career as a physicist. Like it has been really fulfilling, and it continues to be fulfilling. I look forward to that. I love my career as a teacher. That is also really fulfilling and rewarding. I love working with student athletes. But my proudest thing, the thing that I love the very most, is that I have 2 daughters.
Oh.
And the younger one is starting here as a freshman this coming fall, in fall of 2025.
For honors?
Yeah, she'll be an honors student.
Congratulations.
Yeah, I am so excited. Just because as a faculty member, you work really hard to improve the university.
Mm-hmm.
Even as an administrator, we're trying to make the university better. And we're building it together. And it's for the students, and the students do contribute to building a better future for the university. But the faculty are here longer than students. You're hopefully not here for 10 or 20 years. You're hopefully, moved on, gotten your jobs, moved ahead with your life. But we get to see the university change for the better.
Mm-hmm.
And now my daughter gets to experience those changes. Yeah. So
That's
really
bittersweet.
Cool.
That's
Very
a cute
cool.
dad-daughter moment.
There you go. So I'll have to make her listen to this podcast now.
Yes, you will. It should be part of her assignment as a freshman incoming to FIU Honors.
And both my daughters, Jenny, the older one, who I'm amazingly proud of, and Jordan, the younger one, who's coming here next year, they are both phenomenal human beings. And I love them to death.
Physicists as well, or?
They're too smart to do physics, I think.
Oh, really? I
Yeah.
wasn't aware I got any smarter than physics.
Yeah.
Well,
What can I say?
congratulations on your daughter's achievements, as they are kind of our parents' achievements too, because our parents, molded us into the human beings that we are. I know that my achievements are just as much as my mom and my dad's achievements, so congratulations to you.
Thank you.
You're starting as a freshman in the Honors College in the fall.
There you go.
It's going to be a great experience for you.
It will.
But thank you so much for coming on Panthers Unleashed with us. It was our very first episode. I'm very glad I got to do it with you.
I am proud to be a part of it.
I'm
Thank
glad.
you for
and you've
asking
always
me.
been a supporter of it since the very beginning, since we
Very
came
much.
up with
Actually,
the idea.
the podcast is really reaching a lot of students and a lot of staff and faculty here at the university. And so I think it's great to see it coming back.
Yes, I'm very excited to continue it. And thank you guys so much for listening. We hope you enjoyed and learning a little bit more about our Assistant Dean Pete Markowitz. He will be continuing to support our podcast from here on out.
Definitely.
And
stop
maybe
me.
return on another episode.
Yeah, come up to me on campus and stop me and say hello. Tell me you listened to this show and what you thought of it.
And if you want to talk about physics.
There you go.
But we'll see you guys in our next episode. And we hope you have a great day. Pause up.